Welcome to another episode of the Payments Ecosystem Podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of the world's most innovative payment solutions. Today, I am joined by Manpreet Singh Chhabra, the Vice President of Growth and Strategy, along with Rohit Sharma, Director of Product Management at Cashfree Payments. Together, we'll explore how Cashfree relentlessly pursues growth, expands the payment landscape, and leads the payment ecosystem through meticulous planning and focus. Join us as we uncover the secrets to their winning strategy and learn how this payment powerhouse continues to make waves in the industry. Hi, Rohit. Hi, Manpreet. Welcome to the Payment Ecosystem Podcast.
Hey, hi Shalit. Thank you so
Hi.
much.
Hey, Shiladitya, thank you so much for having me here.
No, it's great to have you both. Both of you have been a part of the cash free story. I think, Rohit, you've been here for a really long time, and Manpreet, you're doing something very interesting, even though you've joined recently. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. We've met so many of your colleagues already on previous episodes of the show, and here we talk about everything when it comes to the payment ecosystem, as well as how it is being a part of cash free, which is doing so much in this ecosystem. So just to sort of understand a little bit of your personal stories, maybe I'll start with you, Rohit. Given that you've been here a much longer time, can you tell us a little bit about the role you do, and of course how it was in the early days to what it's become now?
Yeah, sure. So I think I joined Cashway like a little bit more than 5 years ago, and yeah, I think we had just like raised like our seed funding, and we were around like 10, 11 people. We used to sit in
Wow.
like two or three desks at that time. Yeah, I think, and from there, I think there'll been a lot of learnings, lot of things that we did, lot of mistakes we made, things we learned, and overall, what I kind of started in doing was like leading the. At that early stage, there's not really a very clearly defined role because it's obviously very too small to do that. But
Right.
eventually, what really happened was I started like overtaking one product. Like so we had like two large products, so I was like kind of leading that one initiative, like doing like product engineering bits here and there and things around it. And yeah, I think so. Basically, I scaled that product up and I basically worked on that product for the last 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I'm basically leading that product today in cash free from a product perspective. Yeah.
Awesome. And these were obviously early days, meaning the company was also trying to find, let's say, product market fit, like you said, very few people. What were the challenges? I mean, what was top of your mind then to maybe a little more focused sort of stuff you're doing today?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, as you rightly said, we were looking to find product market fit. Payments in India at that time were obviously growing, but it was not really an easy market. It was not a new market. It was like, it had like mature, there were like larger entrants with much deeper pockets than us. So it was like, how do you find your niche? How do you go into like specific verticals where there are gaps? How do you identify what those gaps are? How do you build faster, be more agile, right? Like keep on knocking those doors, right? Like because obviously not everyone is going to say for or yes on the first time, right? So
Hmm.
keep on those conversations, keep coming back, show your value to the user. So I think, yeah, so I think we were doing a lot of that stuff, and eventually we found some of those things. We found like, hey, that these were segments that we could grow into, right? We onboard
Hmm.
merchants, and once that journey starts, it's like once you have momentum, then you start, then you know that you've done X things and these X things work, so you need to just repeat some of these X things and
Yeah.
find new things to do which are like which would be
Right.
value adds. So I think now it's much more focused, and now we're like thinking about how we can go beyond these things that we're already doing. And yeah, it's a different journey, but I think in those times, I think we're just struggling and like trying to do a lot of things and figuring out where we stand, where we lie, and what value we can bring to users or businesses. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know, Rohit. I'm glad that you guys, had the perseverance to keep at it, trying to solve the problems in the space early on. And of course, the testament is that Cashfree is doing great and doing some really, really innovative things in the payment space, even today. So to you, Manpreet, you've joined more recently, but you've been a part of, let's say, a lot of other startups in the past before here. You came on board here. So, what I would love to hear from you is what attracted to you to Cashfree, given the stage the company's at right now, and of course, like what's exciting for you now that you're on board.
Yeah. So let me clarify. Payments is happening to me for the first time. I chose to, let's say, pivot my career at Cashfree and let's say take a stance that hey, I want to join, let's say, payments as an industry, which I've not done earlier, and be a
Right.
part of the strategy and growth team of this exponentially growing company, and say that hey, while I've worked for let's say e-commerce, online space, majorly across let's say tech product companies, but then let me
Mm-hmm.
take the stance because payments and as an industry was growing exponentially. Second piece being cash free, being the kind of nimble company they have, and the kind of let's say exponential growth they're having. This was one very very good time to join them. Second piece, while I was let's say getting interviewed at cash free, was also that hey, most of the people I was let's say speaking to right through my references or let's say interviews getting scheduled, the average age which I saw across let's say product or let's say growth or let's say strategy was around 29 to 32 years, which really excited
Mm-hmm.
me because the kind of exuberant mind you see in the company working, let's say, uh, day and night and ensuring to solve a problem which is there in the payment ecosystem, making more seamless, making it more robust, making it more, let's say, compliant as per the government norms was something which attracted me big time. Also, what was happening was when you look at, let's say, other players in the market, uh, cash free is at an exponential growth stage, which I earlier mentioned. So, what we can achieve from where we are at this point in time is phenomenal. And that's where I said that, hey, if you can be a part of the journey and help company achieve that, nothing like it. As I always say, right, the destination is not that beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
What more beautiful is the journey, and that's why I wanted to be part of this journey.
Nice. Nice. I mean, it just goes to show, right? I mean, even from the early days, Rohit, to now, I think you guys have been able to maintain that, like you mentioned, nimbleness at the same time, the fact that it's such a young team, uh, which is great. It's great to see that there's so much innovation coming from such a young team overall. On that note, something that often gets talked about is exactly this, right? Is this, as a company grows and a company scales, you need the team to have that sort of cohesive understanding of the mission and the vision, and and sense of purpose, right, as to why they're here. And you need to understand each other very very well in order to actually deliver the promise that you've given to your customers. So uh, how does that happen here at Cashfree? I mean, what is that philosophy that all of you both, and I'll ask either of you, Rohit, early on, what has been that philosophy, and Manpreet now, after you've joined, what is that one philosophy which you both think is making this work over here?
Yeah. Rohit, you want to go first, or
Yeah,
shall
yeah,
I?
sure. Yeah, I think during the early days, I think there was like, I think there's one philosophy that was always stands the test of time. I think it is, how can you delight your merchant, right? And that could be through n number of ways. You can do it through engineering, product. You can do it through customer success. You can do it through any number of ways. But at the end of the day, like if you can bring like more delight to the end merchant or the user, I think there's nothing like it. Right, going beyond, I think that is something that we even hold, that holds true to today as well, and that's what we try to ultimately do. uh, India is a very tough market for most businesses. It's not that easy, right? But when a business is placing trust with you, I think that trust goes to show that they trust you, not, and specifically for payments, it's just because it's so critical and sensitive, and it just goes beyond like a lot of other things. Like, I mean, I can just change like other things easily, but changing a payment partner might not be that easy, right? I mean, you have to,
Right.
you're trusting someone with their money. So yeah, I think like that is one thing that we very like hold very dearly to. At the end of the day, it's like, can we really solve a problem for a merchant? Can we bring delight to their lives? Can we make them like, can we make their lives easier, simpler, better? And I think that is the mantra, that like everything that underlies our actions, I think flows from there.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Manpreet, what do you think?
I think great point put forward by Rohit, wherein customer centricity is something which is very, very, let's say, foremost and fundamental for, let's say, all tech prod companies, and cash free pretty much is on the same lines. So I'll try and, let's say, put more lesser focus there because that has already been mentioned. I think two pieces apart from that, which I believe is very, let's say, very much adored at Cashfree. One thing is that hey, we want to make sure that hey, we have a certain pie with, let's say, new age companies. While you look at enterprise as a sector, that's something which every company goes after. But then can we ensure that hey, there's a, let's say, startup India wave wherein companies are growing exponentially from an X to a 10x, 10x to a 100x. So can we make sure that hey, we acquire those companies at an early stage and we grow with them? I think that's something which we look at. And what kind of pie can we have that? And that's somewhere I genuinely believe that a cash free is a force to reckon on, big time. Right. The second piece, which I believe, which let's say pertains more to the team, and what I believe is it's not about the who. It's as in it's about how you do it. So when I talk about, let's say, cash free's success predominantly, what we have ensured within the team is even you might be an outsider to payments, which of course I am also am, right? But then if you have the passion to, let's say, solve payments as a problem not only for India but let's say other countries as well, because if you talk about fintech evolving not only in India but then the kind of mark, let's say, fintech companies can make across the globe is something which is massive, and there's a very, very crazy opportunity which we can look at. So while we look at, let's say, talent here, one thing which is very, very clear is that hey, we are looking at people who are very dedicated, people who are ready to learn, people who are here to solve problems, while making sure that hey, it is let's say seamless experience for the end customer, and you're able to achieve, let's say, a certain pie of the market across all the respective sectors.
Very nice. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think everyone is. I mean, the startup sector is obviously massively booming. It's only poised to grow, and it's an important part, I think, of choosing to be in this space, right? So, uh, being able to not just and I've heard this from other colleagues of yours at Cashfree as well, that being part of this India story is an important thing for everyone, and building the plumbing or the layers which enable it, I guess, is pretty critical and exciting. uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, let me also ask then, what this is philosophy and culture and this motivation, like you both said, to be together. But maybe first, maybe to Rohit, moving from the early days of being, let's say, a bootstrap small team to even now at this scale, uh, beyond the individual motivations everyone has, and culture, the sort of vision that everyone aligns to, how do you maintain the agility? And when I say agility, probably around like communicating internally with so many teams, so many cross functional sort of folks. You're in a space which is not just tech purely, right? It is regulatory. Uh, it's doing business to with other companies of various sizes and shapes, like Manpreet mentioned. So, what are some secret sauce items that you can talk about when it comes to how it all works inside?
Yeah, I think for you, when you're really small, I think like communication is not that big of a problem, because yeah, this is small and you can like
Yeah,
really fit in a room, and communication is easy. So I think communication is an asset to you at that point of time, right? Like, I mean, you can move fast, decide, make decisions really faster. When you grow, I think there comes a point beyond which verbal communication kind of does not work. And I think cash free to a large extent grew in the 2 years when things were largely shut down because of the pandemic, right? 2020 and 2021.
right,
So I think there was a very conscious shift or open mindedness in terms of building an open company, right? before that we were not an open company. People used to come to office every day to Bangalore, right, to our HQ. uh, but it was not possible to do that after the pandemic, right? So I think we did a shift to a culture where a remote sort of remote first culture where writing or written form of communication becomes much more important. All right, so how do we bring people together is through that. And obviously all of our documents, visions, missions, everything, OKRs, like kind of like go into that format. And I, while we can obviously do a lot more improvement in those aspects, but I think that's what has kept us together in terms of like we are all aligned on the same goals, that we
Hmm.
share this in a little bit more elaborate fashion in written documents than we would otherwise. And yeah, I think even today, if you look at like specifically the product team at Cashfree, it's kind of highly distributed in nature. Like we have folks sitting in Delhi. Uh, Folks don't really show up to office every day, right? Like they can like work
Yeah.
remotely, come to office as when the team demands. So I think that openness and like and willingness to like kind of like get into shift gears into doing new things in terms of like start going to writing culture when we were not really there. I think that has really helped us like grow over the last few years.
Very cool. And yeah, I mean, I think this is something, when you hear it, obviously it makes sense, but getting it going, making sure everyone on the team sort of, again, becomes more writing first,
Yeah,
is a tough job. It's great to hear that you guys have done it,
yeah,
and I think clearly it's done wonders for your, internal coordination. Manpreet, coming from, again, like you said yourself, non-payments, and of course, but various other startups and tech first sort of companies. What is it that you've noticed which is a little different here, and obviously which makes things work uh, surprisingly well for you, even?
Yeah. Uh, I let's say, because as you mentioned, I don't come from a payments industry, but then I think it's more about the environment where you work, right? Uh, I enjoy working in an environment where, let's say, the members of the team have a strong sense of, let's say, accountability, right, and a good
Hmm.
work ethic. I think that's something which is very important and basic at the same time. If you're looking at, let's say, working with, let's say, really competent people, which I'm sure they are because they are there as a part of the company, right?
Hmm.
Kind, let's say, uh, funny, and let's say more of, and people should have more of empathy also at the same time. You might be at any position,
Yeah.
right? And specifically for the leaders, right? If you can't put yourself in, let's say, shoes of, let's say, your team members, then I think driving the team would be a very difficult job in the long run, right? And while I do that, it also becomes very important for me to trust my team members, because there's a trust which I'll always have on my team members to pull that off, right? Because
Right.
if you're there in the company, you have to ensure that, hey, you cannot get into anything and everything. You have to strategize and make sure that, hey, you are only picking up the important pieces, and the other pieces the team is able to implement, and that's how you grow, right?
Right.
I think that's something which I really believe. So good work culture is something which is very, very fundamental, irrespective of any industry you work in. uh,
Mhm.
Second piece which I genuinely believe is, let's say, when it comes down to, let's say, team, is, I think, two fundamental words is, when it comes down to, let's say, good communication with, let's say, the team, is how open and how often. Because while I was working with other companies as well, I made sure that, hey, I interact with my team members on a very frequent basis, uh, and also ensuring that, hey, I'm open enough, and they have uh, the, let's say, openness to come to me and say that, hey, can we do it this way, right? Am I open to, let's say, inputs coming in from the other side? Because if you're not doing that, even if you're not open to some criticism coming from the or suggestions coming from the other side, this would not help, let's say, the department grow and subsequently the company grow. So I think that's something which I'm let's say, very, very sure about. And one last thing which I want to mention, which I do it, let's say, irrespective of the companies I work, because I work for, let's say, two, three industries across my entire career. is I always ask my team leaders to, let's say, spend time while we look at weekly reviews, or let's say monthly reviews, or let's say quarterly reviews. And I genuinely tell them that, hey, these reviews are not for, let's say, leaders. These reviews are for you because you understand the kind of journey you have traveled. So
Yeah.
a review precisely means introspection at your end and understanding that, hey, have I done things right? What have I done wrong? And what do I really need to, let's say, uh, ensure that if this is right, then I'm moving in the right direction. So introspection is something which I say that, hey, make sure you have a focus time, let's say at least half an hour, 1 hour in the day, and then you introspect and then you say that, hey, are things moving in the right direction?
Hmm.
Am I not lost in chaos, right? Which generally all of us as professionals tend to do because there'll be so many things popping up at so many hours of the day. So making sure that you invest your energy in the right direction, in right areas, is something which is very, very important.
No, very, very true. I mean, these are things which, again, like I said, we don't all often. We know these are good to
Yeah,
practice, but putting them in motion, ensuring this happens both for leaders and for teams, I think,
yeah,
is very difficult. It's great to hear that you guys have managed to do it in spite of the scale of the company today. And on that note, I mean, I think all of this is not possible if you're always sort of zoned in and thinking work. So maybe to switch gears a little bit, how do you and also the team like to unwind? I mean, what makes this also a fun place to be instead of just all work? So Manpreet, you want to go first? Like, what do you do to, let's say, just tune out the noise and try and get your introspection going?
yeah. I think motivation is a very strong term, right? I think we've been hearing this since, let's say, the time we started, let's say, getting into a B school and then started working, right? And we were talking about, let's say, motivation or inspiration since centuries, right? So if you ask me, I genuinely spend a lot of time with the team. It can be work, it can be non-work as well, right? I can get to the best test of discussions with them. There are quite a few people. I love soccer. I'm a big Manchester United fan, so I'll get into, let's say, the deepest of discussions with the team, trying to understand what went well and how have we been performing not so great in the last 7 8 years, and what's there in the cards in terms of, let's say, the kind of strategy, let's say, the team has, the manager has, right? Yeah. Also tend to go out with the team, right, more often than not, just possibly so that they are open enough, right, trying to make me understand that, hey, this is what we want to do, this is how we want to progress. And one thing which I always ask the team is that, hey, at times, let's say, out of four, let's say, weekly reviews, one weekly review which I do with them is I don't talk about numbers, and I
Mhm.
genuinely do that, right? I just talk about, let's say, hey, what's happening, as in, are you loving what you're doing? Is there a change which you want? And I genuinely want to do that, right? Because that's when, let's say, the person on the other side also opens up and says that, hey, uh, that I might be possibly doing something, but then I'm good at something else. Let me try that as well, right?
Mhm.
Might not happen, let's say, a month down the line, but then can I look at a similar role in the next 6 months? Can be with a different perspective to it, right? So I think that's something which I do big time with the team, without the team. But then overall, I watch a lot of sports. I play a lot of sports.
Nice.
And I think sports is something which is there in your genes, which also keeps me very agile, right? And you have that sense of spirit while you, let's say, play a sport
Yeah.
or watch a sport, that, hey, you have that attitude that, hey, it's if the process which you said, right, if the kind of work which you do is in the right directions, results would follow, right? It's very simple, right? Today you might lose a game, but then in the long run, if the process is right, I think things fall in place.
Nice. And soccer is a recurring theme, if I may say so, in a lot of conversations I've had with Cashfree folks. So it seems there is definitely something which attracts a lot of soccer folks to the company. Rohit, what about you?
Yeah, yeah. I think I just continuing. Yeah, I think the during the early days we used to like go out for like soccer like once a week. I think like even when we were like only like 10, 15 of us, even then we
That's
used to go out.
great. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, personally, I think a pandemic put a stop to that because yeah, obviously we got dispersed.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, personally, now I'm to de-stress myself. At least I really like running. I think that's what I've kind of taken to now. And yeah,
Nice.
running and long distance, I think is something. I mean, I really can't do that long distance in Bangalore until you go out. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like you can easily do like around 8 to 10 kilometers. But that's what my
Nice.
go-to thing is now these days.
And while running, do you listen to music or do you listen to a podcast?
No, I don't listen to anything while running. I think
Oh,
I really can't like focus on anything while I'm running. I mean, just
interesting.
focused on
Okay.
like yeah, just running part of it.
My question was basically to ask if you guys listen to any podcasts.
Okay, okay.
That's what I was trying to get out at. Or any favorite movies, books, or anything you want to mention. You heard recently, read recently, saw recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah. You want to go first?
Please go ahead with it. That's fine. Yeah, I'll
No, so
go
I
after.
think yeah, so I think the last book that I've been or the book that I've been reading, I think is like Beloved. I think it's like a it's
Mhm.
one of the it's an old book right from based on like an American black girl and her like journey, and like it's pretty interesting book
Wow, I
in
haven't heard
terms
of
of
that one.
it's a like a fictional book basically. Yeah, I think it's quite. I think it won the author I think the Nobel Prize as well. Yeah, so I think yeah,
Oh
pretty
wow, for literature. Okay, amazing.
yeah
Sounds deep, and but I will check it out. Manpreet, what about
yeah.
you?
So I've been starting to, let's say, hear a podcast of lately, which I wasn't doing earlier. Uh,
Hmm.
the last book which I read was Deep Work. When we talk about, let's say, there'll be,
Yeah.
let's say, a lot of distractions around, and how do you make sure that, hey, while, let's say, there's a lot of chaos, how can you create a better workplace for yourself, right, or craft a better workplace for yourself in, let's say, a distracted world. And I really love that. I've just started reading, let's say, Start With Why, and I've got one more book. I think while I was traveling day for yesterday, I got a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Horowitz. Yeah, nice.
so in the last, let's say, specifically, this started with me during the pandemic, as Rohit mentioned,
Hmm.
and there were fewer things which could have done because you weren't moving out. So a lot of OTT, a lot of reading books, a lot of spending time with the family. I think that's where I picked, let's say, again, reading books. I think it was a big pause for me for some time, but then luckily pandemic helped me out with that. So yeah, have been reading quite a few books off lately.
Nice. No, that's good to know. I mean, again, Bangalore obviously helps you with a lot of outdoor options as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I was trying to egg on if you guys have any favorite podcasts. But let's say, hey, you're on one now, so maybe you listen to this for sure when it comes out. Uh, so switching back maybe to talk about a little bit more about the future of not just cash free, but since we're talking about payments and the ecosystem, right? uh, what do you guys see as, like, why is payments or maybe fintech the future? Why, I mean, we understand what it has played in terms of its critical role in the growth of the economy so far, and how
Yeah.
fast it's growing and how much, even as a country, I would say we are on the forefront of. But personally, for you, how do you see uh, the future, and why is it exciting? So, Rohit, maybe you can go first.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think personally, I think I'm guessing like all of us are aware, right? Like payments has really fundamentally changed in the last 10 years in India, and maybe not in a lot of other places, but in India definitely. I think but while we've solved payments, I think there's a lot of other fintech things we've not really solved, right? Like for example, access to credit and a lot of other things which
Hmm.
are still very not great in India. The experience of like getting credit and for people who are not even credit worthy, I think those experiences are very pretty poor. I think like going further with fintech is basically going to make sure that I think some of these things or some of these initiatives become much better, right? For example, if you're like someone who's just starting up or want to take an education loan, right, those things should be really easy for you, because we're kind of like building things right from the ground up. I believe that we are at a we have a really great advantage in terms of what we can build here, and that's where you see like all these initiatives, right, from the government as well, uh, or NPCI or RBI. And I think that's going to be the future in terms of how we can make things much better for. I think we made it better for, let's say, like top 50 million people in India. Got to make
Hmm.
it better for, I think, maybe like a larger set of people. Like, so yeah, I think that's what is the hope.
Very good. Manpreet, how do you see this future
Yeah,
playing out?
yeah. I'll start with a very, let's say, typical example. I was there at UV City a month back, and while I was making a payment at the parking, they said that hey, we stop taking cash and we take only digital payments. Now, I would have not
Nice.
imagined this, let's say, 5 years back or 10 years back, right? If you're talking to me, let's say in India, you stop taking cash at any place. That's the last thing I would have even thought of, right? So I think that's something pretty much says that hey, how we are evolving as a country. Uh, Also, let's say there are quite a few pieces which Rohit mentioned. Apart from that, let's say talking about BNPL, I think that's something which has been a talk of the town since let's say last 5 6 years, right? And let's say
Hmm.
there's a lot of adoption which is happening at this point in time. Working capital issues, which let's say are getting uh, better, let's say with every day passing by. I think a couple of more pieces apart from let's say crypto or a blockchain, which let's say people have been talking about. I think one piece which is very critical is because the kind of population we have, which is pretty much our strength. We're talking about let's say insurance, insure tech. I think that's something which is supposed to go
Mm.
leaps and bounds, right? Because the kind of penetration we have currently in the country is very low at this point in time. So the opportunity there is massive. I think that's one piece. The other piece which I genuinely believe is look at let's say the kind of growth let's say Zerodha got, right? Or let's say talk about let's say wealth management as an industry,
Right.
specifically in India. So people are getting more educated towards finance, which was not there earlier. If you talk to let's say, most of the people doing an FD, I think people like Rohit would say, "What are you talking?" Right? I was
Yeah.
genuinely talking about let's say doing an FD, yeah, because that pretty much does not match with the inflation big time, right? So people are
Right.
getting more educated and making sure that hey, this is the kind of let's say inflation and the costs which are there. So how can I ensure that my wealth multiplies? So wealth management as an industry is supposed to grow big time with more education getting imparted and let's say more uh, digital content getting available to let's say audiences across the country. So I think these can be some
Yeah.
really two big sectors apart from let's say credit as a sector, which Rohit mentioned.
No, very true, and I'm glad that you guys are obviously so enthusiastic about not just the payment space but fintech space overall, which goes to show that there's lots more we can probably expect from the folks at Cashfree in so many places for you guys to build on top of. As a closing note, again for folks who have been listening, what would you say is that what is that one thing for someone who wants to join, let's say, cash free, get into this whole payments ecosystem? What is that quality that they should have? And how should they, personally for you, both of you as well, what's been the learning here, right? What have you learned which really makes it work? And you think someone else who's not in the system today should definitely possess if they want to become a part of this story? Rohit,
Uh,
maybe you can go
Yeah,
first.
yeah, I think yeah, I was just thinking about this, and I think because Cashfree is like like I'm kind of like a decently big organization, like 600, 700 folks, right? So I don't think there is like a single trade you can say that hey, you have to be fit in that. But I think like if you have to say, maybe it's at a qualitative state, I think it's eagerness to learn, right? If you are like curious and eager to learn, and that kind of shows in like the kind of applications that we get. Like some people, you can easily show some of those aspects, right? So it's not just key you can say that I'm eager to learn, but you don't show it. So but I think
Mhm.
like if somebody really wants to, yeah, jump into fintech or cash free in general, I think that is the one of the large, like most important criteria for us. Like if we see that hey, someone might not be capable enough but is curious to learn, I think we'll definitely take a leap of faith in terms of giving that person a chance. And yeah, I mean, maybe I think everyone else does also. So I think that, so showing that curiosity is kind of like important.
Interesting. Very good. Manpreet, how do you
Yeah,
say
I think Rohit pretty much stole the point which I was trying to make. But then, yeah, I think willingness to learn comes by default because, as I said, uh, For me, learning has been exponential in the last, let's say, 6 to 8 months, right? I've been learning payments, let's say, day in and day out. So it's like, let's say, I'm there at a, let's say, college, or let's say some place where I'm more open to, let's say, hearing than saying anything, right? Because people there are much more, as in, have been a part of the payments industry much more than, let's say, what I have been. But I think one thing apart from, let's say, willingness to learn is something which is agility. I think that's something which is very fundamental for. And why agility? Because for a fast-paced organization, if you're not agile, then you would miss the bus, right?
Yeah.
If let's say you're working for a very very large organization, let's say 5,000 plus, 10,000 plus, then I think agility, of course, matters, but then would not be one of the would not be at the forefront, right?
Mhm.
But then I think apart from willingness to learn, agility has to be one piece which, let's say, you need to have if you're working for a fast-paced organization.
Oh, very cool. And it's great to hear that even at 600 plus people, you're able to do things fast. I mean, Manpreet, the what you just mentioned, learning for the last 6 8 months, while being fast, going out there, whether it's Rohit, you shipping products, or you growing customers. I think agility matters everywhere. So it's great to hear both these points, and of course, also to hear so much about your personal stories, uh, being at Cashfree, and the opinions you shared about the payments ecosystem overall. Uh, I think we are only going to see more and more exciting stuff from both of you and the folks at Cashfree. So I'm really glad to be having these conversations, and getting everyone a view on the payments ecosystem and what life is like in one of the largest players in this space. So thank you so much, Rohit, Manpreet. It was great having this conversation with you. Really thankful for sharing your time, and wishing you guys obviously the best, and cash free, of course, in everything that's to come.
Thank you so much for having us.
Um, Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure speaking to you, and of course, the kind of, let's say, inputs Rohit gave. I think they were amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, your learning journey, like you said, Manpreet, is continuing with even even these conversations. Now I'm great. I'm really thankful to both of you for sharing your inputs. I had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you so
Bye.
much.